She really had a lot to contribute to exactly the kind of performance that she wanted this to feel like. And Tom Cruise is definitely a name that comes up sometimes with Crystal for this type of ferocious masculine character. So I'm hopeful that it plays that way.
Welcome to Survive the Shows.
Welcome everyone to this exciting interview segment here at Survivor Shows. I'm Desiree, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Jake Foy, star of the LMN movie Eat, Pray, and Lie. Join
Yes.
us, yeah, join us as we delve into Jake's insights into his character and the challenges of filming this movie. Thank you for being here with us, Jake. It's
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
a pleasure for me. So, talking about your character in Eat, Pray, Lie, how did you first react when you read the script for this movie? And what should you to your character's journey?
Great question. Actually, the way that this project came about was a really interesting story. I had worked with the director Crystal Lowe on a TV movie for a different network in the fall of last year, and she is also between Los Angeles and Vancouver. So we became fast friends, and she's a fantastic young female creative and director and a mother in her own right and a really, really cool person. And she had been through a director mentorship program that brought her to the Lifetime Network and brought her a script that was at the time called The Retreat. And we had been in touch between two cities, and we're both in LA at the time. And she asked me to read the script, and I had been doing a lot in the romantic category and not as much in the thriller category at the time. And I had been looking to do something that was a bit darker and scarier and more gritty. And I had expressed that to her, and she had me in mind. And when I read the script, it was a perfect fit for us both. And she was foraying into one of it was either her second or third of these movies for television, and I wanted to be on that journey with her and watch her directing journey as well. So it was a no-brainer.
Great. And what kind of research or preparation did you undertake to authentically portray your role in this movie?
Well, Will in this film happens to be a lawyer. We don't get into too much detail about exactly what kind of law is being practiced at the office because we mostly follow Chelsea's character, Sophia. But there are a couple lawyers in the family and one on the side of my in-laws. So the research comes from, family outreach and connecting with my soon-to-be father-in-law about the details and inner workings of life in the legal practice. And I've been a big fan of law shows and Judge Judy. I do have Judge Judy where you are. It's like a daytime courtroom show.
Oh, it's the same format, but with another name. And
Okay,
I
okay.
don't know if they do the same things, but I
Yeah,
totally,
no.
yes.
So, yeah, court television was a big thing for me growing up. And so I also watched a lot of Suits. I spent a lot of time researching in that category. So, as far as doing the work research, not just for his career, but for the preparation, it's not an enormous stretch. He's like a academic with a edge of mystery all the time. And most of the prep work was in talking with Crystal, who was fantastic about exactly where we wanted to reveal what elements of his character and where we might think or feel that he's potentially the responsible party for the bad things going on in Sophia's life, or isn't he? So it was mostly a creative dance of deciding when to appear more guilty and when we wanted to play a little bit of innocence.
Great. And this story revolves around betrayal and revelation. Which scene challenged you most emotionally and why?
Really interesting question. I feel I have to think back. It was May when we shot this. Um, I think, there's a penultimate scene in the film that involves quite a lot of revelation to your point. And then I'm trying not to give anything away. And then also an action sequence around that included some work with a stunt coordinator and some hand-to-hand interactions and some prop stunts as well, which was all really exciting stuff to take on because I haven't had to do a lot of it in recent years. And I would say that's probably the most demanding. I'm trying to decide if it was also as equally as emotionally demanding. But I think what's funny is sometimes art imitates life in that way. And on these big sequence days that are capturing action, you end up being off your center for most of the day because production is moving so quickly and there's so much to film and there's so many bits and pieces and you're trying to beat the clock on the location and everybody has a hard out time. So um, probably the most tense moments of the film were also the most tense moments behind the scenes as well, and we build up to them over the course of the timeline.
Amazing. And you talk about that a little bit, Chris, in this interview. How did the director, Yankee Crystal Lowe, vision influence your performance and approach on set?
I would credit Crystal with a lot, actually, for being relatively new to her own directing career. Crystal is very, very, very interested in playing, and that word gets thrown around a lot for actors and filmmakers. But we really did get to try multiple perspectives on the same scene, different nuance adjustments, subtle variations in blocking or setup and payoff of reveals within the plot. And because we were coming to the table as friends as well as colleagues, it's not it might actually be the first time that I've done that professionally. Obviously, in context where you're collaborating with other peers and you're maybe making a short film or a creative project that's sort of strung together, it's a bit easier to bend the hierarchy of exactly who's at the top of the call sheet, but while maintaining a really firm hand of leadership and creative vision and having some really specific Hollywood shot references from iconic films that she wanted to get. There's a couple nods to Crystal's favorite horrors and thrillers in this piece. And even within that, there was a really open conversation about what if I come around this corner this way? What if this gets revealed with this prop in this exact moment? There was a really open dialogue the entire time, and it really shaped the performance in more ways than I can probably count because there was much less disconnect than there usually is on a production of this scale where someone's in their trailer and then they fly in just to shoot and then the blocking lighting and rehearsal is happening in absence. It was a much more intimate crew and happening in a very expedient way. So it I we'll see what you think when you get to see it if you haven't seen it already. But she really had a lot to contribute to exactly the kind of performance that she wanted this to feel like. And Tom Cruise is definitely a name that comes up sometimes with Crystal for this type of ferocious masculine character. So I'm hopeful that it plays that way.
Great. And in this movie, you shared the screen with Chelsea Rosebrook,
Hmm.
Zane and Chiara Rain. How
Mhm.
did your chemistry develop during rehearsal and shooting?
Well, on a schedule like this, what people don't really know is that the leading lady is very, very occupied and busy with work and prep a lot of the time. So I feel like I got to spend more time getting to know Kiara and Zane and even Diane a little bit, who makes a brief feature. But as far as like camaraderie on set, I like Zane and I will still keep in touch on social media and maybe send a meme or two on occasion. And Kiara, the same thing. Kiara is a riot, actually. She's a very, very, very funny, bubbly person who I hope viewers get to see more of. I think she'd make a fantastic leading lady in the future as well. She's a bright light and she's so happy to work and lifts everybody up, and it's a really refreshing energy. So I think you'll be seeing more of her as well.
Yeah, great. And can you describe a behind the scene moment on this movie set that still makes you smile or laugh?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm trying to think. These questions are so surprising sometimes because it's just been that little while.
Okay.
Uh, I'm trying to We had, I mean, there's in everywhere that we filmed the retreat or there's one location where we're outside of Los Angeles by like an hour, and in this very interesting Zen yoga retreat type place. I guess called the title has since shifted. So, but when we're at the getaway, there's this like fantastic like white polar bear. I don't even know what the breed of dog would be, but I find like a dog walking in and out of takes when you least expect it and sort of beyond the control of the crew is always a fantastic way to lift people's spirits when they're working really hard. But it what there what I think one of the reasons why I can't necessarily reach for something is these projects imitate the tone of the piece sometimes. And when I'm doing a romantic comedy, there's always something to giggle about, actually. And my first thoughts were, oh no, wait, that was on that comedy, that was on that comedy. But there it was a kind of problem solving mysterious tone about the shoot as well. We were in these dim lit rooms for long periods of the day doing complicated setups and trying to control the traffic at the exterior of the house and all of these elements. And our first AD was actually very, very funny. And we talked a lot about our favorite things to watch. And I can't remember his name in this moment, which is so bad, but he's worked on a ton of fantastic things. And he had me giggling throughout the shoot, whether we were laughing with each other or at each other. So I'm grateful to him for that.
Amazing. So, about this movie, what themes in this movie do you hope will resonate most deeply with viewers when it will premiere?
Beyond the themes, because um, these movies for TV have a lot of fandom and expectation, and people that love the genre are really, really loyal. I just hope people are able to actually be on the edge of their seat for this story. I know that's a really silly thing to say, but whether the themes of distrust and honesty and um, infidelity and integrity are all like fantastic buzzwords, but I would just hope that people really want to know what happens next. Like, who could be responsible for this? How did that person fall from that place? How did that secret leak out in that way? and is he or isn't he, whether it's Zane or myself, um, responsible for what's going on in Sophia's world? So that's my hope. I just hope that Crystal's work, hard work shows as much as I certainly felt it, and I think that it will, and that everyone from the cast to the crew and everybody that works so hard on such a tight schedule and with such limited resources feels that their work keeps people on the edge because it's a very fun little plot, I think.
Yeah, great. So, change of subject,
Yeah.
talking about your career in general. Looking back, which past role do you feel prepared you most directly for this project, and in what way?
Very, very interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is my theater training at a place called Sheridan College, just outside of Toronto in Canada. I don't talk about it as much as you'd think in these kind of interviews, but it really was the breadthiest education that I could have asked for as a young person. And there was an exercise in school, in second year of school, called acting critiques, which is essentially meant to diagnose what might be perceived as your acting weakness, and then to choose a role in that stead. Uh, to confront where you might feel that you're not totally a typecast. And at the time, uh, that was sort of pinned as playing the bad guy, which I think is crazy. I think I'm slowly drifting into the lovable asshole category. I would love to play more jerks as we continue because I like to be one sometimes in real life as well. But it seems to be a typecast that avoids me a little bit. But I did an exercise in school, like I say, with a play called Mr. America slash Pink Toes by Joyce Carol Oates, where I played a convicted murderer and rapist for a one-man show piece that was about 10 minutes long. And that's the first thing that comes to mind because there's not a lot of uh, unless you're the guy holding the gun or committing the act of something violent, it's a really delicate balance to create those undertones in a person when they're presenting themselves as the good guy in the world of the film. So that's probably the best example actually, which has been that's been like 10 years now. No, 12 years. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So, and you have split your time between say it's not right because I do my research, but sometimes internet can be tricky.
Yeah.
You split your time between musical, theater,
Mhm.
television, and movie.
Yep.
How do those disciplines inform each other in your craft?
Well, that's a fantastic question, by the way. You should give yourself credit for the research. I think, you know, whether you're an actor bringing stunt training to the table, or a background in the military, or years of traveling abroad that other people can't necessarily tap into. I think what the multidiscipline training did for me was build a very, very robust machine to draw from. So when I take on a character, often it's the first step of that process is sort of casting that person in my real life, someone that I know very well, or is a member of my family, or my group of friends, or even sometimes like celebrity casting something. Oh, this is like this person, or I get the sense that this person would have played this character really well if they were available for the contract. So, um, in that process, it kind of becomes, well, how does that person carry tension? How does that person walk? What is the cadence of how that person speaks? What's the accent of how that person speaks? What's the intention in the information they gather with their eyes when they're not speaking? Like, what are they looking for? Are they the type of person that's looking to nod and agree? Are they the type of person that doesn't believe anything they hear? Are they that so with musicals that opens that up as well, right? Because everything about your physicality from your head to your feet becomes part of the conversation with the director and with myself for the prep process to figure out exactly what the movement and exterior physical carriage tics are for this person. And that is really useful actually in the first couple of days. You know, I watch a lot of actor and director interviews as well as I imagine you do. And
Yeah.
you know, you hear heavyweight actors like talk about this a lot. I remember a quote from Julianne Moore at a round table talking about how sometimes it's not until day 4 or 5 that she feels she's really able to where the penny really drops for all the prep work that she's done. And that you know, really spoke to me because sometimes as an actor that's earlier in their career or less established in their career, there's the shoot is only 12 days. So when you think about 5 days out of 90 days on a movie or even 30 days on a movie is only really 15% of the work. 5 days of out of 12 is getting up toward 40% of the work, right? So there's less flexibility to sit in that uncertainty. So the theater training, I think, like any actor that's done it, or certainly done more than me, and maybe spent more time with the Shakespeares or the American moderns, et cetera, would agree that it feels like a shortcut or a toolbox that's there to close that gap so that the it all feels synergetic a little bit sooner.
Great. And looking back at your career, which role do you think was your breakout role and why?
Really, really interesting. There have been two sort of like moments that felt like a crack in the pavement, actually. The first, oddly, was a small recurring spot on a show called Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland and Aidan Canto, Maggie Q, and I played opposite Anthony Edwards mostly. And even though I didn't have a lot to say on that particular show, um, it was the first time I was on multiple episodes of a show where I was able to observe something that was being made at a very high production value for Netflix that was already a hit, already had an engaged audience, and had also been brought over from the network space to the streaming space. So there were all these new freedoms that the show was navigating as well, like things they could do on screen that they couldn't do when they were on network television. And as someone who aspires to create and show run more of the material that I'm in, so be both behind the table and in front of the camera, that learning process has affected me in a very deep way. I'm going to add a third one to this, though. Before that, I worked on the development of the Broadway show Come From Away that ended up doing a very big international run. And that was at Sheridan College with Michael Rubinoff as the creative producer of that show and brought that to life. And watching something come from Nobody Knows It book title to an international hit was also a very big important thing for a young person to see because it made a lot seem possible that did not seem possible before. And then of course there was a rodeo show that I did called Ride that was uh my first series contract, and we only did one season of that show, but the cast of that show is still very friendly and we keep in touch all the time. And it was it was a career shaping contract that has still has very good energy tied to it for those of us that were lucky enough to do it. And we'll see what the next one is.
Yeah. And from this role, what did you learn from and
Mm,
that still carry you into new roles?
wow. For this in particular, I think because it was a newer or a genre that I hadn't been in for a while, and because Crystal was so excited to be there, I think sometimes as somebody who also directs, it's easy for me to map what performance to read as in the final product of something, and therefore put some guardrails on what I'm willing to do or how far I'm willing to take a creative note or a piece of direction. And that's not to ignore where the director's coming from, but to try and also guide the arc for my character. And that was true here as well. But because Crystal in particular was so excited about what she was going to get to do creatively in the little moments of this piece, I learned to trust the director's process again because I didn't have a rigid image of how exactly I thought this role would play. And because there was a bit less, not less on screen time, but because it's really Sophia's story and Will is along for the ride in a way that's a little different than a romance where it's more 50-50. It was nice to try things that I wasn't sure were going to be the right thing or wasn't sure they were in my original vision of the character, but then to be pleasantly surprised by how they worked. You know what I mean? So there were some way in moments that I thought were, oh, it'll definitely have to be me coming from this perspective, and then we're gonna go here and end somewhere here. And then Crystal would really like turn the dials on those details in a way that was very pleasantly surprising. And so I'm gonna be bringing more of that openness to future jobs because it just makes working more fun. And that said, Crystal really earned that by having a really solid reason for the things that she was coming from. So it's just bringing the open-mindedness as well as the creative enthusiasm. That's what it'll be.
Amazing. And talking about your future project,
Mhm.
are there any roles or genres you have yet to tackle
Mm.
that you are eager to explore?
Great question. Um, I would really like to do something that is that's action explicitly. Like I think I'd really thrive in something that is also maybe I'd like to do a period piece again. There was a recent tape for a show that is both like science fiction, action, and a period piece. And I was like, oh, that's gotta be so fun. Doing something that's set in the 50s or 60s with elements of science fiction and violence and action and all that stuff would be, I didn't even think of that hybridity of genres as being something that was going to be on the table. But the more that I think about it, the more that I'd like to do it. And yeah, I think that's gonna be the answer. I don't need to do more horror and gore. There's a lot of people for the actual like bleeding in the woods stuff is like it can be very cold and uncomfortable and scary. I'd also like to do more outside of the action category. I'd like to do more historical dramas. I love biopics and period pieces and and historical drama. I think that category is always so fun because there's often a real person that people know and ha have their own personal feelings about that presents a really cool challenge. Playing somebody that people recognize and know would be a fantastic challenge because making an audience happy is harder than ever, and that's my answer for that.
Yeah. So the last question, beyond Eat, Pray, and Live, what projects are you excited about this year in the next couple of months? Uh,
Mhm.
and you want to share?
Yeah. Well, there is a feature-length musical that a team and I have been working on for quite a while. There are two now, actually, which I'm pretty excited about. And then a science fiction project that I'm writing and would be attached to direct that'll be hopefully shot at the end of this year in the first quarter of next year, which is really cool. And then a family comedy for television that a good friend of mine, two good friends of mine and I are working on writing and getting to camera. So mostly on the creative side of the table, and then will get me on screen for something in those as well. But the goal is to get them made and shot and out there, and that's where my focus is right now. And the on-camera work will just keep coming.
Yeah, great. So this is it. Make sure all of you to catch Eat, Pray, and Live next Friday night on LMN. And thank you, Jake, to join us today.
Thanks, everybody.
It was a pleasure. And thank you all for watching. Bye.